Hello, everyone. So,
Oh.
Jill put in a special request, being that this is our Thor: Love and Thunder review. Uh,
I love it.
so he wanted me to start off the podcast talking in a oh god, this is not going well.
It's okay. We
In
could
a
we
New
could
Zealand
end it here. Oh,
accent.
she's got it. That was our great intro. Thank you, Kelsey Kilpatrick, a great co-host on this show. Welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. That beautiful intro. In the
Uh,
spirit of Thor: Love and Thunder. Directed, of course, by Taika Waititi, another fellow New Zealander, starring Taika Waititi and a few other people, returning cast members, new cast members, and of course some cameos. We're gonna get into all of it. This is our movie review, so we don't like to go into like all the news and we don't break it down scene by scene. We just kind of talk about the movie in general, some non-spoiler things, and then at the end we're going to be talking specifically about spoilers that pertain to the plot of the movie that are crucial that is not seen in the trailer. So anything that was seen in the trailer, we're going to talk about in this non-spoiler section. As soon as we get into stuff that's not in the trailer, we'll talk about spoilers. But Kelsey, I would love to hear your thoughts first, just opening us up. Tell us first a little bit about the movie, just like what it is, where it takes place, especially in the timeline as well, because sometimes it's hard. This is the 29th film in the MCU, so like we're now getting to the point where it's like, wait, where does this fit into everything? So
mm.
please enlighten us.
Okay, let me tell you a little story about Thor: Love and Thunder. No, I'm not going to
She's
do that
still
the whole
going. She's still
time.
going. Oh boy.
That was a callback from the movie. If you haven't
Mm,
seen it, you shouldn't watch this because I feel like we just have to get into the plot of the movie, which is
yeah.
pretty much a spoiler with in
Yeah.
itself. But
Yeah. Do your best at keeping it as vague as you can, I guess. But I mean, it's tough.
so Thor: Love and Thunder picks up after at some point after Endgame. Um, And okay, so essentially the big baddie villain. Can I even talk about him?
Yeah, he's in the trailer. It's Christian Bale. He's Gore the
Okay.
Hunter. Yeah.
Yes. So he we find out kind of we a little bit what happens to him and his family life and why he has this vendetta against gods, and essentially it's up to Thor and the help of some friends uh to stop him from going, god to god and murdering all these like,
Yeah.
you know, i- important beings.
For sure. Yeah, that's one of the
That's the
plots.
plot.
I
Yeah,
was gonna
one
say
of them.
that there's also another one, which is the Jane Foster. We see her in the trailer as well.
Mhm.
Jane's back, and about their relationship and why she needs to wield the hammer, how and why she needs to wield the hammer. Again, a spoiler, so we're not gonna get into it yet. But that's another plot line. Oh, and then there's another plot line with this new Asgard thing. Valkyrie's king, and she's already kind of tired of her kingly duties. That's another plot. Oh, and the Guardians are in it too. That's another plot. That was actually where we were like, that was kind of what the trailers told us was a Guardians Thor team up movie. Oh boy. And then the other plot being they need to go. Well, it's kind of a plot for another plot, but it's they need to go to Zeus to get this like precious lightning bolt to help them accomplish another mission. And there's a little side quest
Mm.
there. So there's a lot of different plots going on, and all kind of in that shadow and wake of Avengers Endgame. Kelsey, I would love to hear your thoughts just in general on the movie before we get into like more specifics, because this is actually a disclaimer. Kelsey and I, this is the first movie of Phase 4 that we didn't get to see together. It was very upsetting, but my schedule has just been so busy recently. Hers has been busy. I was out of the city for a little while. I'm coming back soon, but we couldn't find the time to do it together this weekend before this review. So we saw it separately. So I don't know whether she laughed, whether she cried, whether she groaned, because people in my screening, there were people doing a mixture of all three at different times. So
Sure.
sometimes all groaning, sometimes all crying, sometimes all laughing. So I'd love to hear
Mm.
your thoughts, Kels, on this movie.
Yeah, so funny enough, Dill, I was just talking about this movie today while I was at work, and all of my male coworkers were coming up to me and telling me how bad they thought it was and how much they disliked it. And I was like, I didn't dislike this movie in any okay, it's complicated. I have a complicated relationship with this movie because I
Okay.
walked away and I was like, "Huh, okay, some good stuff happened, some really random stuff happened.
um,
Some but then I was writing down my notes, like, I was just jotting down all my notes and all my thought processes and everything that I walked away with. And I realized that I mostly have complaints. And that's not to say that but I don't think okay, I've been telling people that I liked the movie, and I think
Yes.
I liked it. I think I did, because here's the thing. I Okay, so we walked out of, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, which is what everyone is immediately comparing it to because it's, the
Most recent, and it
the
was
most
also pretty
recent.
divisive. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, "Oh my god, Doctor Strange was so much better." And it's weird because I walked away from Doctor Strange feeling disappointed. I didn't walk away from Thor: Love and Thunder feeling disappointed. I was confused, but I definitely wasn't disappointed. But
Yeah.
I watched Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness for a second time when it came on Disney Plus, and then I was like, "You know what? That was a pretty solid movie," and I came
Yeah.
around to it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I have a lot of mixed feelings, I have a lot of complicated feelings about these past
Yeah.
2 movies we've gotten. Dill, please.
Kelsey, you're gonna be a lot nicer than me because I fucking hated this. I think it was comfortably the worst Marvel movie since Thor: The Dark World, the last Thor movie, and I'd even argue to say it might be my least favorite in the MCU. But I have several reasons why, and I don't want to come across like a hater, and I want to say this out front. We as Marvel podcasters and Marvel
Wow.
fans, these movies are made for us as fans. Like they're made for the fans first and foremost, the people who grew up with the comics and the people who have loved these movies and these TV shows. But as fans, that doesn't necessarily mean we have to love everything. And I want to get that out of the way. This is not me being a Marvel hater. This is not me being a Kevin Feige hater. This is not me being a Taika Waititi hater either, because I love some
Mm,
of his other things too. I was not high on Ragnarok, but that does not mean I'm just anti Thor in general. I
sure.
don't necessarily know if this was the right fit, especially for this movie for him to direct. I think with Ragnarok, I've kind of come around to that, kind of like what you were talking about, Multiverse of Madness, where I've kind of just let myself kind of let go of the whole we're never going to get Shakespearean Thor again, because I kind of like the Shakespeareanness of Thor, and just accepting
Sure.
that like this is what they did to the character and they kind of rejuvenated it, and it was a straight comedy from beginning to end. And some of the Hela stuff doesn't work with that comedy for me, but like all in all, it's a very funny, entertaining watch. Here, it's a comedy where two of the biggest plot points are about locking children in cages, attempting to kill all these kids to summon these gods to then kill the gods, and another big plot
Mm,
line revolving around cancer. And I just feel like, and I don't want to dive into what or who has cancer, all this stuff, but like, it's these two things that I just don't think the comedy necessarily worked for the story that they were trying to tell here. And then I go into some of the behind the scenes stuff, and I find out Taika Waititi didn't have a real script. He had basically all these ideas and filmed 4 hours worth of material, and then at the end decided what he was going to leave in and cut together. And I feel like
hmm,
that's just that's kind of a doomed game plan, and that's kind of what this movie felt like. It felt like a lot of different fragmented things, like kind of how we were talking about earlier. Like there's all these different plot lines, but what is the one main plot line? Yeah, you could say it's the Gore the God Butcher stuff, but even then, he's not there for a good half hour somewhere in the middle. So like, it's like you kind of
mhm,
have to figure out like what is the main plot of this movie. To even where the ending, I did like the ending. I think it set up for a very interesting future. But again, I was like, it
mhm,
didn't necessarily feel earned, and I think that's the thing is I think the comedy is good at certain points, but sometimes the story that they're trying to tell in the MCU don't need the comedy, and I kind of felt this a little bit with some of the moments in Ragnarok, and I really felt it with this. And again, it's not me being an MCU hater. I love the MCU, but it's just this really disappointed me, and I can't wait to talk about it in spoilers
sure.
because I think a lot of them are spoiler specific. Um,
Yeah.
but are there any general things we can talk about just without spoilers? Like I think it's hard, but because I touched a little bit on the comedy, just feeling like it was very tonally off with a lot of the Gore the God Butcher and the illness plot lines going on. What are your thoughts just on the humor in general? Did you find this to be like funny? Because I honestly, my audience was laughing at certain moments, but then there were certain moments where just the punchline was just dead. Like no one laughed, and
Mm,
it kind of showed. I was like, wow, like I'm not used to this. Usually, I'm used to a Marvel crowd eating up every single joke and reference, like Spider-Man: No Way Home. Every line someone had a reaction to, and here there were just like
sure.
awkward moments of silence. And I don't know if that's an audience's fault or if it's just
Mm.
my own fault for just expectations. I don't really know. But do you have any thoughts on just that aspect, just the very general aspects of the humor, or even just the story in general?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Dill. I saw this movie. I saw it on Thursday night, on opening night, in a movie in New York, at a theater in New York, and my crowd was like dead. Like,
Yeah.
the whole time. No one there was no reaction. I mean, like, there were definitely times where there was collective laughter for, like, the funnier moments. Honestly, like, the humor in general, like, I'm just such a fan of Taika Waititi's style of comedy. Like, it's
Mhm.
very quick and, like, the whole, like, Korg character is just, like, I feel like his style of comedy just, like, embodied,
Yeah.
and, that will always be fun for me, and I think that, like, Chris Hemsworth has just really found such a great, you know, comedic style of his own
Mhm.
through Thor. Because,
Yeah.
as you said before, Thor started as this very Shakespearean regal guy, and he's kind of morphed into like this himbo, basically,
Yeah.
which is like delightful. I love watching this. I think Chris
Yeah.
Hemsworth does a great performance
Mhm.
as this character.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't have really any complaints about the comedy. I
Okay.
remember laughing quite a few
Yeah.
times. It was never really the jokes. Like, it's never like building up and punchline that I found
Mm.
funny. It was the
The overall
quirks and the
nature of it, yeah.
mannerisms
Mhm.
and like like the very quick like quippiness between characters that I found funny.
Mhm.
Anything
Yeah.
that was blatantly like a set up to be a joke, it was like, well, yes, I recognize that that is a joke, but it was just like little smaller
Yeah.
details that I
Yeah.
enjoy the most in Taika's films that I found
Mhm.
funny. You
Yeah,
know what I
it's
mean?
interesting because I think there needs to be a good balance between the kind of stoic godlike Thor and then the hokey kind of like funny like laugh at himself Thor. And I think honestly the best movie to do that is Infinity War. I really think because his
Mhm.
whole story in Infinity War, I look at it as Thanos's and Thor's. Like Thor's a
Mhm.
major part of that story. It starts with Heimdall and Loki dying, and like you see his whole arc there, but he still has those moments of humor with the Guardians, which I really like. And I think that movie has best balanced the two. And I was
Mhm.
just hoping that maybe because we were going to see him again with the Guardians, because this is a Guardians Thor team up movie according to the trailers. We're going to get like this really great dynamic where he can be more of a straight man, but because he's with these other people and the quips come naturally rather than him just kind of reaching for the joke. I think is kind of the difference between like how you and I saw it, because I felt like at times it was reaching a little too much. And
Sure.
I just think also Taika Waititi in general, and again, I don't want to slander him, but I think his style is just so like calm and laid back that sometimes for the superhero genre, it sometimes comes across to the audience that it's almost a little phoned in, like almost a little careless, just kind of like, and that's kind of the
Mm.
impression I got. And maybe it's because knowing going in that he had filmed 4 hours of this thing and he was just kind of gonna pick and choose what he wanted to do. And I know there's been this video cycling on Twitter of him and Tessa Thompson breaking down the scene's visual effects, and he's like basically laughing at all these little visual effects mistakes that he didn't catch. He was like, "Oh, I was too lazy. I was falling asleep in the director's chair. I didn't notice that. Ha ha ha." And it's like that attitude, it's funny to an extent, but if you keep having that attitude, it almost comes across careless. And I didn't want to say he was
Mm.
careless, but this seemed to have a lot less thought put into it in terms of just the overall coherency than
Sure.
Ragnarok did. And
Sure.
then his other movies did, because he's coming off of an Oscar win for Jojo Rabbit for best screenplay. He's coming off of Ragnarok, which was praised as this really great like change of pace for this character. It really rejuvenated this character. He's coming off of some big performances. He's in Free Guy. He was just in Lightyear. Like he's having a
Mhm.
good time, but I'm almost wondering if the fame is getting to him and he feels like now he's invincible, and the things that would 10 years ago or 5 years ago be risk taking is now just kind of like throwing paint at a wall and just hoping to make a masterpiece rather than painting a Mona Lisa with sunglasses on. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference
Sure.
between like yeah, using your humor to then create something powerful rather than just kind of relying on your humor to do all the heavy lifting when sometimes it doesn't work. And we'll get into some with spoilers, but that was my main complaint with the humor. But also I wanted to touch on the visuals, because when you see that video of him like kind of making fun of the visual effects, it kind of hurts, because it's like people put their time into making these visual effects, but then recently news is broken today even from people who are working on Miss Marvel that like the actual demand of the visual effects workers in Disney, a lot of them are leaving Marvel and like not following through with their contracts and stuff because it is so demanding, and they're apparently
Mm.
overpaid, they're underpaid and overworked, which is always hard to
Mm.
hear. And I did get a sense of that too with the visuals, and I think that's just a matter of phase 4, you have so many projects you're trying to do at once, TV and film, and film
Mhm.
is a different medium than TV. TV, sometimes a lower budget works, like you can get away with a lot more. Film, it's a lot more noticeable when there are mistakes. Like in this film, there are masks that just appear on the characters' faces that are completely CGI. Why wouldn't you just get a real mask? Because now it looks fake, it looks hokey because it looks like, when you're on Snapchat and you hold down an image and it pins it to the face and it like kind of follows as it moves. It kind
Yeah.
of looked like that whenever Natalie
Sure.
Portman's mask came on. And it's like little things like that. It almost feels like the visuals were half-assed. It just seems like a lot of this was almost incomplete. Like there just needed to be more time given to this, which is why I'm worried for Black Panther this year. Like we haven't even gotten a trailer for that. I'm worried with all the rewrites and with Chadwick Boseman's untimely passing. Like I'm just worried for some of these projects now. It almost seems like they're just trying to get them out in front of a crowd faster than they're trying to like get it done quality wise, if that makes sense. And I'm
Sure,
just a little
yeah.
worried about it.
Like,
Yeah.
it feels more like a factory pumping out. It's like
Yeah.
quantity over quality
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the sense I got, especially with this movie, because Doctor Strange was the opposite. I felt like the story was kind of just so-so, but the visuals I thought were really good. Like, I thought it was a very interesting, dynamic-looking film, but I thought the story sucked. Here, I think I didn't particularly love the story, and the visuals really stood out as something that just, like, detracted me from the film, personally.
That's interesting that you say that, Dill, because I thought, like, some of the visuals were, like, quite cool. Like,
Okay,
the
yeah.
whole beginning where, where we were, like, we have an entire cold open
Prologue, yeah.
basically
Mhm,
before the Marvel intro rolls, and it's about Gore, the villain, and he's in this like mystical place. He's meeting, he comes from these people that worships this one god, and then
mhm,
it's like a don't meet your heroes type of situation because he finds out that this god is kind of a piece of shit, and he's just like they're in this like this oasis in the middle of the
mhm,
desert. And I thought that that was like quite stunning. There are these creatures that are
yeah,
entirely made up of like feathers or petals or something.
mhm.
And then the end, oh my god. I mean, like, I don't want to spoil the end,
Right,
but
right.
there's
But
there's like,
I agree with you there. I think that was
you
well
know what I
designed
mean?
because honestly, because I think it was very minimal. Like especially the end, it
Sure.
was a little more
Yeah.
minimal. They could focus on
Yeah.
that, and even the beginning, you got to think if it was one of the first things they filmed, they had the most time to finish it. I think sometimes it's honestly most noticeable when they're all just kind of standing around at New Asgard because it's all on green screen and the lighting is off at times and Korg is completely
Mm.
CGI, but then there are elements of Thor and Jane that are CGI, but it's still their actors. So like there's like just little things like that that I think also I do spend a little too much time on Twitter. I admit that, and like it's much
Okay.
easier to hone in on those things when because I feel like you have TikTok, which is very much more like all the pros, all the pros, all the pros, all the Easter eggs, and Twitter's more of the but did you catch this? Did you catch this? Did you catch this? And I spend a little
Oh,
bit too much
okay.
more time on the pessimist side, but I do
Sure.
think they bring up good points. Like you look at some screen grabs from the film, and it does look a little underdeveloped. And I do agree there are good elements of design throughout. I don't think it's all bad, but I think the moments that are bad stick out a lot, especially those masks because they just look so off to me. I don't know, and like the goats, they looked off to me. I do think also one other sequence. There's a really great sequence that goes from like color to black and white. I thought that was an interesting choice,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I thought that was well designed. Like that's the thing is, I feel like there are spurts of like well designed stuff in here, but when
Mhm.
other stuff isn't as visually in sync, it doesn't have a cohesion. I think that throws me off more than if all of the visuals were underbaked or all the visuals were great. Like it's more noticeable when it's
Mm.
more chopped up in terms of quality. I think,
Sure.
so yeah,
That's interesting. I mean, I haven't seen anything like specifically no one on I spend a lot more time on TikTok than I do Twitter these
right,
days.
right, right, right,
So I haven't seen anything major of
yeah.
anyone pointing anything out. When I was watching the movie, I didn't notice anything like super noticeable or tragic
Yeah.
happening. So,
Yeah.
um
And
well,
and
the
again,
big
yeah.
and a lot of
It's it's it's
people
it's nitpicking because, obviously we
sure.
also have different theater going experiences. We see it in different theaters, we see it at different moods, different times, and a movie can work differently at two times. And I'm not saying you have to dislike the visuals either. Like if you like the visuals, I'm glad. It took me out of it, but yeah.
No, I get it. And you brought up Thor Ragnarok, and that was another movie that people were directly comparing it to. And the biggest difference between Thor Ragnarok and this film, Dill, is Taika didn't write Thor Ragnarok. He
Mm,
was just the director. And Thor Ragnarok was such a key movie. I mean, like, maybe not the movie itself, but and it was really probably more the end, the post credit scene more than anything that connected it to the rest of the film. But like with Bruce being there, like it was directly tied into the string of movies that was leading us up to Infinity
mm,
War. And therefore, like that movie by default was automatically going to be, it was going to feel more cohesive and more part of the puzzle, where this one is for sure more of a standalone Thor epic. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So I think
Yeah,
that it's unfair in a sense to compare it directly to Thor Ragnarok, because
yeah,
Thor Ragnarok like was awesome. Like I feel like it's in most people's like top 5, top 3 in the
most.
MCU. Most,
Yeah,
most,
yeah,
not
yeah,
all, most. That movie is like I feel like universally beloved by many. Um so to compare it to that, I'm like, well, you're just like
yeah.
you're not giving this movie, Thor Love and Thunder, like a fair shot,
Yeah,
I feel
and
like.
and honestly, I feel like you brought up a good point. Taika didn't write that one, and I'm almost wondering if maybe he tried too hard to replicate the writing in that one, but because it's not
Mm,
like the writing was not his, it might not necessarily be. You know what I'm trying to say? Like he should have just written what he felt like writing, but maybe what he was writing just wasn't the type of humor that people wanted to see from Thor. I don't know. It's very interesting when you
sure.
look into like all the ins and outs of the production side, because I think this is a film that is more doomed by like just I think poor planning more than anything else. Like I think the performances are great. Obviously, I mean, like I
Mhm.
said, I feel like sometimes they feel it feels like they're phoning it in, but I think that's more the writing than the performances. I think, like you said, Chris Hemsworth great. I think Natalie Portman's good. I don't think she's as funny of an actress as Taika thinks she is. So some of her comedic moments don't really
Okay.
land for me. Tessa Thompson is great, but
Okay,
again,
sure.
I even then I feel like she's underutilized at times. But like
Uh-huh.
Christian Bale, I love Christian Bale in this. I think the gore,
Mhm.
the God Butcher stuff is the best stuff in this movie. So like
Yes,
I
I
don't think
agree.
it's all bad. Like I don't think this is like the worst film of the year. Jurassic World still exists. But I mean and Morbius does too. So like it's very interesting because I don't think this is the worst thing, but in comparison to the other MCU films, it just feels like as Phase 4 has gone along, it seems like some things are getting a little less care than some others. You know what I mean? So
Sure. One of
um
my biggest complaints about this film, Dill, is that I think it was too short.
well, yeah, and I think that goes back to the same thing is that he filmed 4 hours of this thing and decided to put 2 hours of it out, and a lot of the story elements don't always mesh together. And it's like it almost
Mhm.
made me wonder if this should have been two movies. Do a movie where, and I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but like do a movie with Thor and the Guardians and then
Mhm.
do a movie with the Gore the God Butcher. Because I feel
Mhm.
like at the end of Endgame, we were told, now Thor's with the Guardians. What's going to happen now? And I
Yeah.
feel like just how this movie went, it was very underwhelming. And I think that
Yes,
was
I
also part
agree.
of it. I almost wish they had made that movie. What the first 15 minutes of this movie, I wish they had made 2 hours and then make another movie where there's this Gore the God Butcher stuff. You bring in the Jane thing. Maybe you can bring in a little of the Jane stuff earlier, but like give us our fun romp, then get into the deep like Gore the God Butcher stuff with all like the you know talking about death and mortality and all that. Like get into the darker stuff. You can go
Yeah.
that route, but have fun first. And I feel like you know there's all the time in the world. This franchise is going to keep going as long as people go see it. Like I don't think there was a rush
Mhm.
to need to cram everything together. And I do agree with you. I think it's too short for the amount of story they want to tell, and I think the stories that I wanted to see that they almost kind of sold in the trailers and with Endgame, the stuff I was most excited to see was way too shortened early on for in favor of a story that just didn't tonally mix with that story. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. No, I agree.
yeah,
I think Natalie Portman's whole storyline could have been its own movie, to be
exactly.
honest with
Yeah.
you.
Hmm.
Like that it just felt like they were trying to like do too much in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like I feel like and none of these storylines I feel like are getting the attention that they need. They're not getting fleshed out as much as they should.
Right.
Like you said, Jill, like the first thing I thought was they hyped up Thor being with the Guardians at the end of Endgame so hard for it to just be like, and they did all this cool shit together, but now they're breaking up. And I was like, but I
Yeah.
wanted to see all the cool shit they did
Yeah,
together.
and I'll
And
be honest, I know that sounds like a spoiler, people, but I'll tell you right now, if you show up to your theater like 5 minutes late because you're getting popcorn and soda, and you walk into the theater 5 minutes late, you won't see the
You're
Guardians. Like
you're gonna
they're in
miss the
5 minutes.
Guardians.
They're in 5 minute, maybe 10 minutes of the movie. Like really,
Yeah.
they're in so little, and the trailer put them in so much. And I get it, you're trying to sell the movie, but you have the Guardians, use them. Like literally use them. Like there's a
Mhm.
montage of all the things Thor and the Guardians did together. There's a montage of him working out that was also seen in the trailer, which I also have problems
Mhm.
with because a I don't think we should be preaching that superheroes need to be in chiseled godly shape to be superheroes. And I get he's a
Sure,
god,
yeah.
but like Loki's not like that. Like why does Thor have to be? And I get it because Chris Hemsworth is Chris Hemsworth, but why not take the whole movie to get there? Like why does it have to be
Mm.
like, oh, but we can't have fat Thor anymore because we're gonna be fat phobic and make him this hunk again because every superhero needs to look like that nowadays.
Sure.
Which I appreciated Zeus in this because he was not that. He got to be old, big old burly
Mhm.
Russell Crowe, and I loved it. Um,
Right.
even though that accent was something. Um, but yeah, I do think that yeah, it was very much promised to be Thor and the Guardians, and then Jane Foster as Lady Thor or as the Mighty Thor. Sorry, and
Or
it kind
Dr.
of
Jane
or Dr.
Foster.
Jane Foster, and I just feel like the Guardian stuff was so underwhelming and like so like just like ripped the rug out from under us. Really. I don't
Yeah,
think
and
David Batista spoke in the movie. He might have once, but I really don't think he did.
yeah, I don't remember him speaking. It honestly might not even have been Dave Bautista. It could have been anyone in that Drax makeup, and I would
Yeah,
have no idea.
I think it was,
That's
but yeah, he may
I
as
mean,
well.
I'm
I
sure
don't
it
even know if
was, but
I honestly Kraglin got more lines than the Guardians. Like
no,
he's
no,
he's
he
like the
did.
lowest of the totem pole, and I love Kraglin. But
He's
like
like,
it
"This is
seemed
my wife."
next
Wait,
next to
that was
next
funny.
next to Star Lord, Kraglin got the most to do with the Guardians, which was freaking nuts. Can't believe
That's
that, but
hilarious.
yeah.
Maybe Taika is like tight with James Gunn or something. I don't know. He was
Well, if
saying,
he was tied with
give my
James
brother a
Gunn,
lot."
if he was tied with James Gunn would be like, use my characters that everyone
Oh, yeah,
loves.
you're right, you're right,
Because
sorry. Well,
James
I was
Gunn loves
thinking
them
more
all.
because 'cause they're, it's his brother, so
No, maybe
I
maybe
don't
he hates James Gunn. Maybe him and Sean are like in a little
Oh,
pact, and they're
okay.
like, we're gonna make sure that Drax doesn't talk, and
Okay,
that
because
Dylan's
I
gonna
think
get mad.
but to play to play devil's advocate, Dill, I think that they realize because in the montage of them, doing like all their battles together, they would come say, "Hey, Thor, we need you to win this battle." I think they realized that Thor, like the Guardians need Thor. Thor does not need the Guardians. And I think they ran into the Carol Danvers issue that everyone likes to say that Captain Marvel is just too damn powerful and that she doesn't need the Avengers. She didn't need all the,
Yeah,
female identifying Avengers to back her up in that moment because
right.
she's the most powerful being ever. That's how I feel about Thor. I'm like, so he would just come in, like, do his own thing. Like, the Guardians would literally just sit there and twiddle their thumbs, and he would be, throwing Stormbreaker around, literally like holding two space vehicles with his legs in a
Legs.
split and like just doing the absolute most. And I think that they realized, well, if we actually made a movie centered around Thor being with the Guardians, it would be kind of boring because Thor just wins every single fight he's in,
Yeah,
unless it's with Thanos and he doesn't go for the head. But
right.
every
Which
other fight he
Yeah,
wins
which
pretty easily.
I think it's really ballsy that they decided to have an ice cream shop right in the middle of New Asgard with the literal gauntlet and hand of the person who mass genocided most of the Asgardians on that plane,
Oh,
including
yeah.
Loki and Heimdall. I think it's ballsy that Thor would just walk down the street every day and look at that and be like, "Oh, God, you killed my brother and friend." Okay, I don't know. I wouldn't personally,
Yeah.
if that
No,
guy did
yeah,
it to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
And people are saying,
Interest
well, Iron Man did it too. Then why not make it the red Iron Man hand with the gauntlet, guys? Like, come
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Could
it's
shoulda, coulda,
that is
woulda.
Thanos. That is Thanos, and Infinity Scoops or whatever it's called. I don't know. Kelsey, any last thoughts before because we're a half hour in? I want to kind of get into our spoilers because I think there's just so much more to talk about. So much
Sure,
Thor to
yeah.
talk about. Any last things involving maybe the performances or just the writing or general thoughts before we get into it?
Um, no, I think everything that else I have to say is a spoiler,
Cool.
so let's
Cool.
just dive right
So
in.
Let's dive right in. Spoilers are there if you're listening on audio. Thank you for watching. Half hour in, but if you want to keep watching, if you kept listening, thank you. We are here now talking about spoilers. The big thing we've been kind of dancing around is just the big plot line of Jane Foster having cancer, and basically needing the Mjolnir as a
Mhm.
way of making her stronger. But at the same time, we find out that Mjolnir is really weakening her.
Mhm.
And this was a bold choice. I think it was a bold choice to go this direction, but like I said, I think when you're trying so hard to make a Ragnarok-esque comedy where you're gonna have goats screaming and Zeus being this Greek whatever the fuck, and you have like this core guy doing his little Taika quips, I don't necessarily know if like cancer is really what's like what meshes well with the rest. I don't know. It just felt a little like uncomfy. Like when she was saying the thing about stage four, and it's only stage four, and Darcy was like, you know how many stages there are? There's only four stages, and she's like, that we know of yet, and it's like that's not like, and people in my theater
Yeah.
laughed. I was like,
That's
that's not
dark.
I don't
Yeah.
want to laugh at that. I also don't want to laugh at a punchline about children in cages. I just don't. That's just, and maybe that's my liberal brain thinking, but I'm like that
Mm.
is not funny to me. And if the whole
Mm.
movie is
I
dark
see.
humor, fine. But like when the whole movie's like slap your lap humor, those moments just felt a little icky to me. But I did like her in it. I like I said, I don't think she was as funny in some of her comedic lines, but I thought her actual chemistry with Chris Hemsworth and her emotional arc was probably the strongest part of the movie next to Christian Bale for me. But
Mhm.
please give me your thoughts on Jane, and then we can also talk about other spoiler stuff.
I have, like I said at the beginning, very mixed feelings about everything that went
Yeah.
happened in this movie deal because I kind of really liked how it was, you know, we all went in thinking like how does Jane become Mighty Thor?
Hmm.
Like how are they going to do this? I was thinking, oh, are they going to tie in the multiverse to this movie as well? Is it going to be some Jane Foster from another universe where she's the Thor in her world, like whatever.
That would have
And
been
but
even
it was
worse.
but it was,
Honestly.
that's where I was going.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought because, every movie I feel like is going to have to you know be tied around this concept of the multiverse. I feel like that's where everything is, leading up to is some multiversal war or whatever. But now I don't even know. I just feel like we're on a train in phase 4. We're on a
Yeah.
train and we don't know where it's going.
Well,
We
and
just
we're more
keep
than halfway
passing.
done. We're more than
Yeah.
halfway done. It's ending at the end of 2023 or whatever. So like Fantastic Four, I think, is the last one in Phase Four, and it's like we're more than halfway done. Like, what is the game plan really? Like, we've
Yeah.
got, I think, I don't even know what we have left. Black Panther, we have the Marvels, we have Quantum Mania, and I believe Loki season 2, She Hulk, and a few more
Guardians
things.
3.
Yeah, Guardians 3, and I don't even know if that's part of Phase 4 or not. Like, I really, I think, yeah, it's very interesting the directionless nature this is going in, where like the first phase was all about the team up. The second phase was kind of like the resolve of that team up and with like brewing the divide between the Avengers. And then phase three was about the Avengers basically splitting up and then getting back together to fight Thanos. Three
Mhm.
very, very coherent stories. This second phase a little bit messier, but like still, like there was
Sure.
a common theme, I think. Here, I really don't understand because some of it's multiverse, some of it is just like post Endgame trauma resolvement. Like I really just don't know where they're going, and I don't necessarily think they
Mhm.
have to all connect. But now that you've set an expectation for your universe to connect,
Mhm.
it starts to become a little bit more alarming. Like, wait, where does all this fit in? You know?
Yeah. And but at the same time, the way that like Jane, okay, the character of Jane Foster would have been, I feel like this would have been great. This would have been a great movie had, you know, something weird not happened with Natalie Portman leaving the MCU for a few movies and not wanting
Yeah.
to be a part of it. And then all of a sudden now she's back making a cameo in Endgame. So okay, I guess
Hmm.
she's back in the movies now.
Well, and she
And
didn't
now
even show up to set. Apparently, they used archival footage from Dark World with her consent. Apparently, she didn't even come on set for that. So she technically wasn't back for Endgame. They just used a clip of her from Dark World that they never used.
oh,
That's why she didn't
interesting.
speak. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So even then, she hasn't been here since Dark World. She's been done since Dark World.
Right. So I'm like, and then they show us this whole montage of Thor and Jane's relationship. And the entire time I'm watching it thinking, well, when the fuck did this happen? Because
Must have been pre-Ultron, right?
I've watched 23 movies and none of this shit went down because they were like, it was during Ultron where, Maria, they're at the party and Maria Hill comes up to Tony and Thor and is like, hey, like, guys, like, where's your girlfriends? And, we kind of don't know. Like, Tony's like, oh, like, Pepper's, doing amazing things. And Thor's like, oh, well, Jane is also doing amazing things. And they try to one up each other, but it's like, it's very unclear what the state is of like, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden Ragnarok happens and it's like, oh, we broke up. And it's like,
Yeah, so it's between Ultron and Ragnarok, I guess. I
I
don't know.
guess.
Yeah.
I guess. I guess now that I'm
Yeah.
saying it out loud, it could potentially make sense.
But
But I'm
even
just
then,
like,
Ragnarok happens during Civil War, so you really have only Ant-Man. Ant-Man is literally
yeah.
when this is going down.
Cause I'm
I
like,
would have loved a
I'm like,
Scott Lang cameo.
I hate when they try to alter something from like the past because I'm like, I watched all those movies. I know
Mhm.
every detail of every movie. And like this was never part of Thor's arc. And okay, and to bring her back just to kill her.
Yeah. And this is what
What
I said.
was the
This is what
point?
I said to my friends when I watched this. I was like, why is it that they feel like strong female character always has to die? Gamora,
Mm,
Black Widow. Now this is three
mm,
big movies where now like you're getting rid
you're
of one of the
right.
only girls in their franchise. And again, like I'm not, if that's the most powerful way to convey your story, I think Gamora for Thanos' story was the best choice in that moment. It sucked, but it made sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Black Widow, I don't know. I don't think she needed to be the one to go. I think it honestly would have been more impactful had Hawkeye done it. Maybe I don't know. We still have yet to see.
Mhm.
And here's another thing
Because
where like in Rise of Skywalker, and I know a lot of people hate on it. I know you haven't seen it yet, and I don't know when you will. So I'm just gonna say it right now.
are
Ray
you gonna
is.
spoil it for me? I'm
I
gonna
mean, I'm
not
okay.
listen.
Fine. Yeah, take it off. Ray dies, kind of,
Okay, wait, let
and oh,
me
okay. Well, you heard it anyways.
do the
But
volume.
here's the thing:
Okay, I can't hear.
Ray essentially dies,
Well, I'm not
and
gonna
then
read your
and
lips
then
either.
Kylo
So
Ren, when he's holding
it's
her,
a
basically
button.
transfers his power to her to then keep her alive, and then dies as a result of that. So Kelsey, you can put him back on now. So I would have
I'm
liked
just
something.
staring off in his.
I would have liked something similar to that, where maybe at the end of this, and this is not a spoiler, but this is like what I would have done. Maybe make it so that Thor, his love is like his sacrifice is that he somehow with this one wish or whatever is able to transfer his power to Jane, keep her alive, and then he sacrifices himself. He goes to Valhalla, where he can be with Loki and Heimdall and Odin and Frigga and
Mm.
all these people. Because honestly,
Was
I feel like
Loki even there?
no, only Heimdall was that we saw, but like
Right.
that could be such a powerful moment if like because at this point all these Avengers, Black Widow was very much a send off because she had already died, but it was very much showing like Yelena is going to be this next one. Hawkeye was very much like I think he's going to be kind of out of the picture. It's going to be Kate Bishop now. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's very much about Sam being the new Captain America. Here's the perfect chance to have Thor say, "No, I'm going to go to Valhalla, and like you are going to get to live and do your doctor stuff and be the mighty Thor, and then go back, and then you can like have a future movie where she now is like with Valkyrie, and maybe there's like some cool like romance going on there, and maybe she just like is the new Thor for the franchise if she really does want to stay in the franchise. But I
Mhm.
feel like now it's just like, oh no, we're getting rid of Jane and Thor's still back, and it's kind of the same Thor because I don't think Thor really went through as much in this movie as he has in other movies. Like I think he's still kind of, except he has now a daughter, which is another thing to talk about. But like
Mm.
I feel like it would have been such a powerful moment if at the end Thor is the one who like does makes a sacrifice and like somehow transfers his power to Jane and like heals her but kills himself in the process, like some sort of big moment like that. It would have been such an epic conclusion to Thor's story. And I feel
Sure.
like that was a cool idea that I thought might happen, but then they just took the what I like to think is almost like a cheap road out, probably because they're worried Natalie Portman might not want back in, so we can kill her and so she never
Mm.
has to come back. But if she wants to come back, maybe there's a way we can get people from Valhalla back, which now makes it so that Heimdall's death doesn't mean as much. And it kind of just keeps piling up and up and up. It's like Gamora, she's dead. No, she's not. Black Widow, she's dead. Oh nope, she has a movie coming out. Jane, she's dead. And now they kind of have a way to bring her back if they want to, but they don't have
Mm.
to. And it just seems like
Sure.
a cheap out for the franchise. Almost like they're thinking too far in advance. Like, well, we want to make sure Natalie Portman can be dead or not, we don't want to risk putting ourselves in a corner. And I'm like, just commit.
Sure.
And I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, Dill, during that whole ending sequence, because, the end when he gets to eternity, I think it was called,
Eternity.
where
Yep.
he gets his one wish. First of all, the outline of like the person, the gatekeeper, I guess,
Yeah.
of eternity, and it's just like they're in this like white like atmosphere, and then it's
Pool,
just the
almost reflective
outlined, and
pool
it's
type thing. Yeah.
yeah. I
I
thought
like that.
that was so cool. I thought
Yeah. It
that
was
was
cool
so,
design.
so cool.
Yeah.
And now he's getting his one wish, and like obviously he's done all this to get his daughter back. But now that he's been using the sword this whole time, it's been poisoning him basically, and he's like, "Well, I'm on my way out anyway." So the moment he said, "If I wish for my daughter to come back, she's going to be alone." So maybe I'm not going to wish for that anymore. I thought he was totally going to use his wish to heal Jane. And
Yes.
and I was like, "Yeah, use the wish on Natalie Portman. This is perfect." And then he's like,
hmm
but then Jane is like, "You know what? I volunteer Thor to be her caretaker. She won't be alone." Which brings me to my next point. Since when has it been in Thor's arc? This is why I hate this cop out of this stupid fucking montage of them, because all of a sudden this one shot from this vague timeline of their relationship, of him looking at a baby in a stroller, is supposed to be like, "Oh, and all this time Thor has dreamed of starting a family and being a father." Since when has that been on Thor's agenda?
Yeah.
Since like when has this been a part of his arc? Like this was such a random wrench to throw
Right.
into him. And
Well,
I
I
guess
think it's
like
also I think it's because he has lost so much. He's lost pretty much everyone, and it's to kind of give him like that. But now he can start fresh with his own family. But they didn't make it a big enough point
I
to go through that grief. Like Infinity War, I think did the best job of that. Endgame too. But if we're looking at the
mhm.
Thor franchise between Ragnarok and here, he's lost a lot of people. Like there's a tattoo on his back, and I saw this on TikTok of all the names of the people he's lost. It says mother, father, Loki. Like it's a list, and Heimdall. It's got all these names on it.
Mhm.
Tony, Natasha, they're on the list. And it's like he's lost so much, and his big tattoo says R.I.P. Loki. Like he has lost so much. Why not give like 5 or 10 minutes of him like talking to Jane and like crying about it and getting emotional about this stuff? So
Mhm.
that way, when he says, "I feel like I've lost everyone, and you're the only one I have left. Like I have no one to care for anymore." Give us a scene like that to where when he gets the daughter in the end, it makes some sort of
It's
sense. And I
yeah,
love it
it's more
that it's his
rewarding.
real daughter. I love it's India Hemsworth. I love that. But it's like yes, that's oh, you didn't know that?
I didn't know
You
that.
need to up your social media game, Kels. Yeah, that's India.
I don't
But
go on Twitter.
no, I mean just like seeing Chris Hemsworth. I figured you knew everything about Chris Hemsworth's life. No, but I
No,
think
I know everything about Chris Evans' life. That's the
oh, okay,
Chris
okay.
I like.
But it was a cute moment, but at the same time, it's like this little girl has not been in the movie at all. It's not like he's gotten a chance to bond with her. Again, it's like this movie's too short for everything it wants to bite off and can't chew. And it's like
No,
now all of a
I
sudden we're
agree.
supposed to be invested. And the whole like it's love and thunder at the end, like that was cute. And a lot of my audience was like, "Oh my god, that's so cute." But I'm like, it wasn't earned. Like we barely know this kid, and yeah, it's cute if you know it's his real daughter. But it's like now he's frolicking in the sunset with her, but it's like he's still lost his whole family in the span of like what is it, 5 years? Like he's lost Heimdall, Loki, Frigga, Odin, even Hela. Not a great sister, but he lost his sister.
Mhm.
Everyone has died. Heimdall,
Yeah.
or sorry, not Heimdall. Mjolnir is what I meant to say. Also
Oh,
Heimdall, but like
yeah.
and
Oh,
that stuff was a little funny. I did kind of like that, but then
yes.
again,
That was good.
I think they beat the joke a little too far. Like I think it was
No, I
one joke
liked
too
it.
many about it, but like the whole idea of Mjolnir and Stormbreaker kind of having their own personalities, I like that. But again,
Yes,
I wish they went
yes.
further in like really going for it, or because it just seemed like the same joke over and over again, same as the goats, which I don't even want to bring up because they annoyed the shit out of me. But like it's just things like that where you're right, it was too short, and there are these moments of payoff that just didn't have a lot of weight to them because we didn't get time to really like understand why they're important. Like, why does Thor need this daughter so much? Is it because he's lonely? Then like deal with that. Like go through the trauma, talk about it. Another moment I thought was weird was just Valkyrie being like, "Oh, these kingly duties are so tough," and I'm like, "You were just made king in Endgame. Like we haven't seen you as king. So now the first thing we hear
Mhm.
out of your mouth is that being a king is hard, but we haven't seen that middle. It's like point A to point C. It's like I want to see point B. I want to see what the toll is of being king." And we just
Yeah.
kind of get like, oh yeah, I'm sick of being king. It's like you just you haven't even been king. Like, we haven't seen you be king. Like, things like that, where it's just like they set up so much, and I feel like they told a story they wanted to tell, but in doing that, they undermined a lot of other plot lines that we were expecting to see, or that were shown here but half-assed, or just made very brief to the point where other payoffs just didn't make sense.
Yeah. Wait, that's so cute that it's his daughter. I did not know that at all. She
So
doesn't
now
look
Kelsey
like him
likes
at
the ending.
all. Okay, well, I will say about the ending where it came full circle and was like, and now that is the story now of Thor, Love, and Thunder, and like that's their names together. Like I
Yeah,
thought that that was really cute. And I was like,
yeah,
"Oh, Thor, Love, and Thunder. I
yeah.
get it. I like
But
it."
that's the last, like, 2 minutes. Like, what if this was the ending of a movie, and then the next movie was Thor: Love and Thunder, and it's the whole movie of the 2 of them, you know what I mean? Like, because the movie wasn't about the 2 of them, it was about him
No,
and Jane,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So,
No, I know, but
yeah,
I like that. I like
that's
that
fine. No,
ending. I thought that
and
was
again,
cute.
I'm just being a little overly harsh because I just, like, I was very annoyed during this movie, and maybe it was the goats that made it even worse, and
I'll be
maybe
honest
Russell
still,
Crowe's accent, but I don't know.
those goats got me every single time. Every
No,
time they screamed,
no.
I was laughing. I was giggling. I was
Fine.
tickled. I'm not gonna lie.
I will tell you things I did like, because I don't wanna feel like I'm just ranting about the whole film.
Well,
I'm
first of all, I want to
not giving it
talk
a
a
1 or
little bit.
2. I know. You have been. You can keep going. Yeah, keep going. But I do have positives I have to add later. Like, I'm not all negative about it, but yes, keep going.
Okay. Because I've been trying to get this thought in for like
I'm
5
sorry.
minutes because you brought up a good point, which was
I
the
go on
fact that they
tangents,
keep.
Kelsey, I'm sorry.
No, are you done?
I'm just apologizing because I went on tangents. Sorry. It's a
Okay.
podcast, we talk.
Okay. Well, you keep interrupting me. So you brought up a really good point of the fact that like they keep killing off like all like the empowered women, and it's because still what it really boils down to is the fact that all of these female characters, they as they are, as badass and as much as we love them and how cool they are and everything, they are still only in the MCU to serve men's storylines. And that is why Gamora gets thrown off a cliff because
Mhm.
she's there to serve Thanos' storyline. And now she's here to serve Peter Quill's storyline because now everything's going to be about like trying to find her, do whatever, whatever. Um, and Jane Foster has only been here to serve Thor's storyline. And that was why she was the one to go and not Thor. Now, there's two exceptions to these women, and that is Natasha, Black Widow, in her movie specifically, and Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Now, these two female characters were not serving a male character in any way, shape, or form. And guess what two movies are universally disliked the most among fans? These
Mm.
two movies. And I think that's, say it with me, folks, sexist and misogynist. That
I
I
agree.
think, but I don't think it's like conscious. I will give it
Mhm.
that. I don't want to say like the whole fandom is sexist. I think that it's deep rooted and it's subconscious and you don't realize that you're doing it.
Mhm.
And it's all those things that even me as a woman, like I have to deprogram my brain to not think certain things about other women in my life and men in
Yeah.
just like in general. So but yes, that is my 2 cents about women in
Yeah.
Marvel.
I have even said vocally I didn't love Black Widow, but I think, I at least hopefully eloquated why I didn't, in terms of, like, I thought the third act was messy visually. I didn't love what they
Sure.
did, and I thought it
No,
was
I
just
know.
poor. I thought it was poor placement in the MCU. I think it was just kind of a disservice that they had already killed her. It kind of lessened the weight of the film. But again, I don't think she's the issue with that movie, and I think the female characters are the strongest part of this movie too. And it's a shame because at the end, we get this big battle, the black and white battle, which I said is pretty cool. But like,
Mhm.
we get so many fake outs in this movie. First off, like Zeus dies. Oh no, he's not. Korg's dead. Oh no, he's not.
Mm.
And now in this black and white battle, Valkyrie seemingly gets stabbed. We think she's gonna
Mm.
die, but then they're like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, we'll get her to a hospital. And then it just becomes, you two wait in the hospital. I'm gonna go fight them and save the kids.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like, what was the point? You could literally have Valkyrie not get stabbed and go with Thor. Like, why did he need to go alone? Because she shows up, because Natalie Portman shows up at the fight anyway. I get the idea of
Yeah.
leaving her behind because then it's a cool reveal because it's her sacrifice when she goes and saves. But why
Right.
Valkyrie? Why did you even need to? Was she busy on the scheduling day? Like, was it like a Kumail
Mm,
Nanjiani Eternals thing? Like, why did you need to sideline her for that final battle? It made
yeah.
no sense at all. Like, she
No,
didn't
I
get a
agree.
chance to fight, and it's stupid shit like that where I'm just like, what was the need? Why did you need to add that extra story
What
when
was the reason?
you could have had 2 minutes of Thor talking about how sad he was that he was all alone, so then we get the daughter payoff rather than spending 2 minutes making us think Valkyrie's dying for her to not show up at the final battle. Instead, you could just have her survive and have her show up at the final battle and just
Yeah.
be fine. You know,
I
it
thought
doesn't make any sense. I think Valkyrie's so underutilized, and it's just such a shame.
Yeah, I think that they
Yeah,
did her dirty. I agree.
yeah,
And I don't know. I think that they were just trying to build to this moment where it was gonna be like Thor and Jane like working together to do this thing. I will say though about the epic final battle is that the army of children.
I
I'm
like that.
sorry. I
Yeah,
loved it.
yeah.
I
No,
loved it.
and
I
you
was
don't have
like,
to
this is
apologize.
cool.
I was gonna say my list of things I like. That was one of the three things I really did like. I liked Christian
Okay,
Bale.
great.
I like well, or the things I like loved, like because there are things I liked
Yeah.
in this. There are things I really didn't like. Obviously, that's why I've been ranting,
Yeah.
and I do apologize for talking so much. But then my big three things, I was like, I think Christian Bale was really committed, did a really good performance, and looked really cool. Like I like the design. I thought Melissa McCarthy as Hella was hilarious, and
Oh, right, right, right.
I thought the Army of Children was really really fun, and like I like that. I almost it gave me a Logan vibe, like at the end of Logan with all those kid mutants. Like I like that ending, and but why couldn't
Sure, yeah.
Valkyrie be with them? Like it just I get it was Thor and Jane's thing, but Valkyrie could. I mean, there's all these kids. Valkyrie could be there too, and maybe there's a moment where Valkyrie can meet Heimdall's kid and be like, "Yo, you're Heimdall's kid," and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What's up?" Like I don't know. Um, but yeah,
I
Melissa
will
McCarthy, I love that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. See, like, so much happened in that
Yeah.
movie that that moment was so early on that
Mhm.
I didn't even remember that, like, Matt Damon, Liam Hemsworth, and Melissa McCarthy were all, doing
Right.
the stage, the Players Theater again.
Liam
Um,
Hemsworth just did not look like Liam Hemsworth, but like he looked even less like Liam Hemsworth in this one. But I knew it was
I
him. But
I think they did that on purpose. I think
yeah,
that maybe they just didn't want him to,
people
like,
to think
look
it was
so
actually
much
him. Yeah,
like
yeah,
Chris Hemsworth's
yeah.
brother
But
that they were
man,
like, "Let's put a beard on him and call it a
Sa-
day."
poor Sam Neill's having a rough summer between this and Jurassic World. That's all I'll say. Anyway, any other thoughts? I mean, there's still so much to talk about. I mean,
Um
we haven't even really talked much about the Guardians in the spoiler talk, but because we kind of talked about it in the non-spoiler talk, like they barely did anything, which sucked. Um,
I will
yeah.
say though, Jill, while we're talking about the final action sequence, wasn't a lot of action in this action superhero movie. Wasn't
No,
a lot of fight sequence. There
no,
wasn't a lot going on.
yeah, and
That
I'm fine with that if it's like actual meaningful drama happening, but it just didn't seem like that was really happening either. But
I don't know. I
I don't know.
just feel like that's one of the I don't know, in a superhero movie, I think you kind of have to have like a decent amount of if not necessarily fight sequences, but like action sequences. And I
Right.
just didn't think I don't think we got I I can only think of like two and it's in the beginning and in the end and everything in between that. And I'm like, what
Well, there's also the
happened?
black and white fight, which I've mentioned
Oh,
a few
yes,
times that I
that was
like.
cool, and I
But
did
yeah,
like the, element of horror during that scene. I'm
yeah,
very surprised that you liked that scene because I was watching it as soon as it faded color and it went black and white, in my head, I was like, "Oh, Dill's not gonna like this. They just got
no,
rid of all the color, it's gonna be
it was
gray." It's
well, but it was a choice. It was like a bold choice
okay.
for me. It wasn't a gray. It was black and white, which I think was interesting. Like if it had just become cloudy and hard to see, I would have been like, ugh. But because you know how I am
Yeah.
about that stuff. But
No,
yeah,
I know,
ugh,
because I guess
yeah,
they were in, like, the shadow realm or whatever it was, so it
right,
made sense
yeah.
that it was,
Also,
black and white.
Lady Sif, another female character that was underutilized, and she has one arm now.
Yes.
I'm like, that was cool, but it barely happened. Like I was like, ugh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that was, like, such a random cameo, and then it's like, what happened to her? Because
yeah.
at first I was like, "Oh my god, no, Sif is dead," but then she wasn't,
That's
and
another one. Yeah, exactly.
oh, I feel like we have to take some time to talk about the whole, like I mean, it's not called Olympus, I don't remember what it was like, but
Oh, the Zeus stuff. Yeah,
The whole Zeus
there's two.
sequence.
Yeah, there's two things. Yeah, we need to talk about. We need to talk about Zeus and then one other thing. Remind me after. But yeah, Zeus.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all,
Omnipotent City. Sorry, I looked it up. Omnipotent City is what. Yeah.
okay, I was like, they call it something else, but it's like essentially Olympus where like all the gods hang out. Um, I liked. I okay, honestly, we had a whole movie about a god killer, and we really only met like 2 gods, and
He only killed one god in the movie. Yeah.
It was Thor and the first god that we met in the beginning, like the god of sun or like
Yeah.
whatever, whoever that guy
Even then, he
was.
just kinda looked like a regular dude.
Yeah, and Zeus. And I'll be honest, I had a good time with Russell Crowe's Zeus. I enjoyed his like
It
his
was
Greek
camp, yeah.
accent, and
Mhm,
it was very camp. And like in that like setting, if like if that was the tone of the movie the entire time, I feel like it would have worked really well. But
mhm.
maybe it didn't work for some others because that scene wasn't the tone of the entire movie.
Yeah, it was
Also,
ridiculous, but I didn't mind it. I was like, "You know
sure.
what? This movie's kinda shit." I was like, "This kind of actually works."
But honestly though, like I kind of liked it how this movie kind of like, like took like sharp turns at every corner. Like you never
Mm,
really knew where it was going because now we're in this bright, omnipotent city, we're in this like room of gods, like this guy, and then all of a sudden lightning bolt boom impales Zeus. And I
yeah.
was when I thought like Thor really just murked Zeus right then and there in
Why
front of
not?
everyone. I was like, "Hell yeah." I was like, "I'm into this. This is great. This
Yeah,
fucking plot twist. I didn't see this shit coming at all."
because it
I
was
was
right after Korg
psyched.
died too. Died,
Yes, and that
and
was the
then
turning point.
yeah, and
They
then immediately
Grooted us.
after
They Grooted
yeah.
us again.
Yeah, immediately after they pulled apart the rocks and they're like, "Oh no, just my mouth that needs to survive." And I'm like, "All right, great." So another cheap fake out. Like, how many times are they
Sure.
gonna fake us out? Like, it literally happened. How many times? Sif, Korg, Zeus, Valkyrie. Did it happen with anyone else? At least
Where
four
we
though. Like, that's a
were
lot.
we thought they were dead, but they weren't. No,
Yeah,
I
that's a
think
lot.
that's it.
That's a
That
lot.
is a lot. And Dill, I was shaking in my boots though when Cord got hit. I was nervous for him the whole movie because I was like, if anyone's gonna go, it's
Yeah.
gonna be Korg. Korg's gonna
Really?
be,
Hmm.
I thought, because it's like when Groot died and they were like, we have to band together now
Right.
because Groot was the glue and we have to
Well,
do this for him. I felt like kind of Korg was like serving the same purpose as Groot. So
also, yeah. I was
when
about
he
to
got
say.
hit,
So go ahead. Go ahead. Good. So sorry.
when he got hit, I was like, "Oh no. Oh no. Come on. They're going to do this to me again." And then they didn't. So
Yeah.
in a way I still got Grooted because Groot came back the same way Korg did. So,
I was gonna say Meek also underutilized. Like I
oh,
wish we saw more
Meek. I
Meek, especially
know.
Meek in a suit. You have that luxury, and
What a
now
saucy Meek
yeah.
cameo. It
Um
was great.
yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about though is the representation because we've seen the TikTok clip of an audience member in the Q&A being like, "Yo, Taika, how gay is this movie?" And Taika turns to Natalie, he's like, "Natalie, you won't tell him." And Natalie's like, "So gay." And I'm like, "Okay." And I was waiting to see it, and it was a little tamer than like the "so gay" she promised, but it did seem a little bit more inclusive of the homosexuality than than other movies did. Like the whole like they want color, let's give them a rainbow. I was like, all right, there
Yeah.
you go. And then of course Korg revealing that the way his species is made is from two male rocks basically
Yeah.
holding hands, and out comes a
Over the
baby
lava.
rock thing like over the lava.
Yeah.
That was interesting, and I love the fact that his husband is Dwayne the Rock. And I think that that was good. It still seems like there are stuff that could easily be cut if they wanted to release this internationally. I don't think they are because I think Disney's holding to their guns. But
Mhm.
um, I did like that they were trying a little bit more to make it a little bit more inclusive of different types of people and give Valkyrie a few moments, even if it was just very brief. I did kind of like that they tried a little bit further with the representation, gay representation in this. Could have gone further, obviously. They
Obviously.
always can. I mean, it's Disney. I mean, what else is new?
But I
Lightyear.
think
They said the same thing, and I saw that this morning, and it's a blink or you miss it.
mm,
So yeah.
I will say though, I feel like this movie arguably is the gayest in the
Oh,
MCU.
100%. Yeah,
Because they
I
were
think yeah.
it was good because they were just outright saying things. Like Korg was like, "Oh, like you're upset because like, your girlfriend died in that battle." And Valkyrie's like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
we're just like talking about it now. Like
yeah.
it's not any nothing's being like alluded to. Like and it
Right.
was no like glances or anything stupid like that. Like it was like,
Mhm,
"No, I this girl's pretty. I'm going to take her hand and kiss it and then like, fall off this
mhm.
platform whatever it is."
Yeah,
And I was just like,
honestly,
"Yeah." Just like put it out there.
Yeah, honestly, it would have been a bold choice, like I said, to make like Lady or make not Lady Sif. Oh my god, the mighty Thor, like and Valkyrie
Ladies.
end up having a thing, like, because like it's been a while, and one thing that a little bit upset me is that the fact that Thor was like, "I've always loved you," and it's like, but for so long in the MCU, I mean, how much time has passed since Dark World? I feel like we barely heard about Jane, and I feel like yes, he hasn't had a love
Mm-hmm.
interest since then, but he really Jane's been kind of an afterthought for a while for him to be like, I've always loved you, and for him to so quickly be back in love with her. I feel like they needed to make that brew a little longer before they had their moment, their kiss, and all that. And also just maybe take this opportunity to make them just platonic. Like, why do they have to be back in? And I get it, obviously, but like,
Mm.
maybe make the bold choice of have her like, have a thing with Valkyrie maybe, and like just make it about Thor and Jane and how special they are to each other as people. Um, I don't know. I think there could have been some bolder choices taken if they wanted to really go and embrace it fully, embrace the rainbow. But I
Mm.
did appreciate them trying at least, and I think Taika that was one element that he tried his best to convey, and I did like that. As tonally inconsistent as this was, I do think the love in Love and Thunder, there was clearly moments where like the love was on full display. It's just I didn't necessarily think it meshed with the thunder or the darker stuff well. If we're gonna make imagery allusions or metaphors.
Sure.
Any last thoughts on this? I mean, it was a interesting discussion. I mean, a lot of things to talk about. Any more topics to talk about?
Well, to answer your question from the way beginning of this podcast, still when you were like, I don't know if you laughed or cried or whatever, I did all of the above. I did laugh
Okay.
and I did cry. I did cry when Jane died, and
Yeah.
because death is sad, and I'm an empath,
Yeah.
and
I was gonna say my friend cried. She's a big Ted Lasso fan. Are you a Ted Lasso fan?
oh, you sure should I am. I sure should am.
Tell us about the post credits, girls.
Okay, so our first post credit scene revealed that Zeus turned out to be alive, which I was kind of annoyed with because I was like,
Retconning a
because
bold choice.
well, honestly, like I don't think you can kill a god, and I especially not Zeus. So I feel like we should have
Right.
seen it coming because it takes a lot to kill Thor. Thor's been through it, and he's only a demigod. So like a
Right.
god, like I don't, I think they're immortal, but um, so his son now he's like Thor embarrass me in front of everyone, and now I need you to go wreck him, or vengeance for me, son. And then we got a Hercules reveal, and it turned out to be I
Brett
don't know.
Goldstein. Brett
Yeah.
Goldstein, Mr. Roy Kent,
Yes.
the writer slash star of Ted Lasso, which is very
Yes.
exciting.
A
Um,
very I love Ted Lasso. I love that character. I'm super excited for this to happen.
I just hope
I'm so excited.
I hope to God he doesn't try to do a fake Greek accent like Russell Crowe's. I hope he just gets to do his regular Roy Kent thing as Hercules. I think that'd be freaking
Probably.
hilarious. Um, yeah, I think this movie set up some interesting things. The next movie should be pretty clear. It's Hercules trying to hunt down Thor, I guess, and Thor raising his daughter. And like that
Mhm.
could be it, and that'll be great. But again, Endgame promised us Guardians and Thor, and that was not what this movie was.
No.
So yeah, and I don't think all my faults with the movie have to do with expectation. I think there were just things in the movie that just for me design wise and writing wise just didn't line up. But overall, a little bit of a stinker for me. But I did find a few moments to like. But Kelsey was definitely a little more positive.
Oh,
But we both agree that there are definitely some flaws. What were you gonna say?
I was well, because it occurred to me, we were talking about the Guardians this whole time, and I was like, "Was Groot in the movie?" And then I like had to like shuffle back, and
Very briefly.
there is a moment where he's like eating the binoculars or something, and Rocket's like, "What are you doing? You use these to
Yeah,
see."
and
And
that's I
then
think
so I
another
remembered
that's probably
he's in it.
another visual effects department. Like we have no time and you're not paying us a lot, so you're not going to get a lot of Groot and Rocket because those are full CGI characters. Um, Despite getting a lot of Korg, so maybe that's why they took Korg down halfway through is because they could only use the face because of budgeting reasons. Who knows? Um,
Oh yeah,
but
maybe,
that's the thing; they have the
maybe,
budget. That's what's so crazy to me.
yeah.
It's just they're not
So Dill,
paying the people they need to pay the most. The most money.
let me
I don't know.
ask you a question. Like, do you think like what's happening with like these past two movies from in phase four with Doctor Strange and Thor now, do you think like this is all results of like the pandemic, like postponing things and
I don't even know.
putting a lot of people out of work for a minute because it's like because we got all these because I'm wondering what was filmed pre-pandemic and what was clearly in the middle of filming and then had
I
to be halted and what
I
didn't even get
know
the chance to start filming
I know for a
because it's like
fact Black Widow and Shang-Chi I think were filmed pre-pandemic, and I
yeah.
believe also Eternals, and they might have all been edited post-pandemic, and then the other movies I think were filmed during pandemic. Spider-Man, Thor, and Doctor Strange, I believe. I don't know though.
Because we got a really strong first half of Phase 4, right? Black Widow,
Yeah,
Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man,
WandaVision,
No Way Home. One yeah.
Loki. Yeah.
And now it feels like we've seen now two more movies in this phase and it's like I feel
Mhm.
like we're like what are we doing?
Yeah, but then
And
again, it's weird because Doctor Strange, though the visuals were the least of my concerns. Like I think the visuals were the
mhm.
strongest point of that. Whereas here, it feels like maybe not the visuals completely, but the overall production, everything just put together. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like it's something's weird there, and I don't know if we're gonna get more answers about the workplace and some production issues, maybe. But I agree. There's something missing with just this recent crop. You know.
Yeah. And I saw something today, it was very quick and I'm probably, not remembering it entirely correctly, but it was like something it was Sam Raimi was giving like an interview about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and he was saying something like, "Yeah, I just wanted to like completely make this movie like my own and like, take my own direction from it." And someone had showed a clip of the interview and then this girl was giving her thoughts and opinions and was like, "Oh, so that's why Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness makes no fucking sense in the concept of the MCU because he was just doing his own thing with it."
Hmm.
And it was
Right.
something like he said something along the
He
lines
didn't write it
specifically
though.
about
He didn't write it though.
right. And
Yeah.
he said something along the lines something about Wanda and it was just like I he was like I wanted to be the one that like showcased Wanda as like as like the enemy or like the
Mhm.
bad guy, the antagonist because like I would like whatever his reason was, but it was just like, "Oh, so the reason why we didn't get like a different movie with Wanda or anything because a lot of people are now complaining about that movie because she went from like 0 to 100 really quick in between
Yeah.
WandaVision and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness."
Yeah.
And we've talked about this to
Yeah.
death, but I just wanted
It's
to
almost like Multiverse of Madness was a result of the post-credit scene of WandaVision rather than the whole growth of WandaVision, was like my
yeah,
complaint and others'
absolutely.
complaints. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I see
for
that.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm all for directors having complete vision, control over their vision in terms of the
Mhm.
visuals and the style and the humor maybe, but like I agree, when you're part of a big franchise you either need to be so separate that it kind of exists on its own, kind of like Black Panther did. I know it was part of a bigger franchise, but like that was such a meaningful movie for just culture in general and kind of was its own little thing. Eternals
Mhm.
the same thing. Like I think the more they try to connect it, the more they run into some traps. um and I think that's why things that are completely standalone, kind of like Shang-Chi and Moon Knight, are some of the stronger highlights of Phase 4 thus far. Um, at least in my opinion, and Spider-Man being the one exception where I think it was really strong and somehow connected to everything else going on, but also telling its own story because also that was Sony, so maybe they just didn't have the liberty to try to bring in so many other MCU characters and stuff. But I'm a
Sure.
little worried for Black Panther too. Got to be honest, because it's coming out in November. We still don't have a trailer. We don't really know much about it, and we don't really know what the story is. We really know nothing, and it's coming out soon. And I'm just worried
Yeah.
hearing what I'm hearing about just the way they overwork and underpay a lot of their crafts and design people. Like I'm a little worried, I because that has a big shoes to fill. That movie, I think, of all the movies in Phase 4, is gonna have to be like the one that
Right.
they put the most care into for
Yeah.
obvious reasons, but also because the first one got an Oscar nomination, got an Oscar. They won 2 Oscars, 3 Oscars.
Yeah. It's
So
like that's the movie that they can't get wrong.
yeah,
Because that's like I feel like if that's the movie where fans walk away disappointed, fans just might walk away then from the
yeah,
entire
and people already
fandom
are.
and the
Yeah,
MCU.
yeah. The TV
You
has
know
already been hard for a lot of fans to keep up with, to where they're like, I'm just kind of done, and because it is a commitment,
sure.
and I've talked about it on here and just other places. Like Marvel fatigue is real, and I think it's fair to feel that, and especially as a fan, like you don't want too much of a good thing. If you eat at your same favorite restaurant every day, you're gonna start, you know, hating the food. It's just gonna
Mhm,
happen
mhm.
unless you're getting the special every day. But even then, sometimes if one special is off, it kind of is like, I don't know. That was my metaphor. I don't know.
No, I love
Um,
the analogy. I was
you work
there.
in a
I was
restaurant, so
I
you
was
know,
I
yeah.
was vibing with it. Yeah, I work that
Yeah.
restaurant life every day, Dil I know, I know.
um, yeah. So any last thoughts? I don't even know if I could put a number on it, but if you have one, you can. Um, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it.
I at an impulse today, just for like my gut reaction. Someone asked me today. They were like, scale to one from 10. What would you give this film? And I said 6 out of 10.
All right, I'm splitting that in half. I'm going 3, but for now, it's a tentative 3. Um, and I think it's
Wow.
just, yeah, I really just, I don't know.
Here's my last thoughts.
It's definitely my least favorite Phase 4 so far
Sure.
of anything, even
Yeah,
lower than What If. Like, I think this is the most disappointed I've been in Phase 4 so far. But
I
whether
understand that.
overall MCU, not sure, but it's definitely bottom 3.
Here's what I'll say. These past two movies we've gotten feel very much like a transition a transitional movie, because think about it. We're trying to tie up, we're trying to like do some sort of like ending justice for each of these characters post Endgame now. So that was kind of like, the whole beginning of this movie was like,
Yeah,
hit all of his ties to Endgame now are cut off because he's not with the Guardians anymore. He lost all the weight. He's not Endgame Thor anymore. This is the Thor now that we have now for the rest of however long, Chris Hemsworth is going to keep making these movies. And now we've introduced like the next antagonist for him, which is seemingly going to be Hercules. Um so it just feels like a very transitional space to be in,
yeah,
and that's why I don't think these movies, like these past two specifically, because not even like far No Way Home, Shang-Chi, Eternals, all
yeah.
those stuck the landing great. These
But
past
other
two haven't really
fans,
been.
I was gonna say fans would argue that Black Widow and Eternals are also disappointments because those have also been pretty divisive. I think Shang-Chi and No Way Home are the only ones that like everyone can universally agree like were really great, but like
Sure.
there are people who don't like Black Widow very much. I don't love Black Widow, but I don't think it's awful. And I think Eternals, I actually really like it, but I know a lot of people don't. So even then, like I feel like there's even more movies to lump up in that like kind of mixed bag category. It worked for us, but most of the Phase 4 movies in general just are not
And like
something.
Multiverse of Madness, like that was like a transitional movie for Wanda from, okay, post WandaVision. Now we have to kind of figure out how Wanda's gonna
Yeah,
fit in to the rest of the franchise. Oh, let's make her wig out because she's, missing her kids. But that arc's done, now we can officially move on with something else for her. And then
yeah.
they just like sold it as a Doctor Strange movie. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good
So
point. Um, I think we've talked enough about it, but I do encourage people to still, if you're a Marvel fan, still check it out because I think it's an important discussion to have. Because when you're a fan of something, you want it to be great. You want everything to be great. I say that every time I'm talking about Star Wars, about Marvel, about everything. Like we are as fans want to try to hold the franchises we love accountable for stuff we don't like to then improve upon it so that they can deliver amazing stuff like the Guardians, the magic lightning in a bottle type feeling of a movie, which I'm still optimistic for those. Fantastic Four, whenever they get a director, we'll see how that goes. And Miss Marvel's wrapping up soon, which by the way, we got a review coming next week for the last 3 episodes of the season. So we're just calling it like
crazy.
Miss Marvel season part two. Um, we're gonna be talking about
Literally.
3 episodes, maybe not detailed, and after that, we'll have some trivia for you, and we are doing our little Marvel taste test video soon, where we will be trying recipes from the Marvel universe. Maybe some we will get ordered, like maybe we'll order shawarma just so we can have the real
Yeah,
authentic New York shit. But
for
we will be
sure.
making ice cream pizza. We will be making several other
Ugh.
things that we have yet to decide. We're not gonna do everything because we don't have the time or the stomachs or the calorie count limits to do it. But
Yeah.
we're gonna try as many fun, maybe like 10 dishes, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Something fun for y'all soon. And I do appreciate Kels as always the long great discussions we have. I know I do apologize in advance. For the future, just I get passionate sometimes, and I sometimes jump over other people in conversations. But I am sorry for cutting you off a few times. Also, just with the
No,
way we I was just
I'm
gonna say with the
sorry,
way
I
we I'm
snapped.
sorry. No, it's fine. And
No.
with the way we stream too, Kelsey, I think is like a few seconds behind me. So sometimes like
Mm,
she will think I'm done, but then I'll keep going. But then I didn't realize she was starting. I don't know. That's just how it happens when you podcast via
tensions are
camera. But
running high here at
it's all
Marvelous
right.
Movie
It's all
Mondays.
right. Phase 4 is pissing us off. No, but if you like
We're
the movie though, please, we are not trying to hurt your feelings. You're allowed to like it. And she even liked it. She gave it a positive review, 6 out of 10. That's still positive. Anything above a 5 is above average. But yeah,
yeah.
I think this was for me pretty below average. But again, what did you think? Let us know in the comments down below. If you're listening on podcast, give us a review. What do you think of this review? I know it's been a little long for our movie reviews, but we had a lot to talk about. This is probably the most we've had to talk about for one of the movies, but we'll be back with Miss Marvel. Thank you all so much. Kelsey, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You could follow me on TikTok, Cause13, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Cause Productions.
That's right. And you can find me at Dylan_Randazzo at Twitter and Letterboxd. I've been very active on there. Gave crazy twist of the summer. I gave a more positive review to Minions: Rise of Gru than I did this movie, which is shocking to me. Because considering how much I hate the Minions, but
Crazy.
honestly, I had a blast at that movie. As it not a great movie, but I had a blast. And I am thinking later in the week I'm going to do like kind of an animation recap because I've got a few animated movies I haven't talked about on the channel that I'm going to. Turning Red and Lightyear, the two Pixar films. I also want to talk about
Mm,
Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which is not an animated film. It's an animated live action hybrid, but I think it's one of the most amazing films of the year. If you can go see it, go see it. And of course, Minions: Rise of Gru. I might do a little animation week later this week for y'all, just kind of giving my thoughts on those 4 animated films or animated/animated hybrid films that I have not gotten around to this year. And then I will be having a summer recap video at the end of the month of August, where I will recap my top 10 movies of the summer. And sadly, the 2 Marvel films are not going to be on that top 10. I'm so sad. But it's okay because that just means other great movies came out that I am excited to tell people about. Maybe I'll rewatch Doctor Strange again a third time, and maybe I'll rewatch this, and maybe it'll just change for me, and it'll be in my top 10 of the
mm.
summer. I don't know. I've already seen some great films this summer. I'm very excited to talk about. And as always, this show every week, every Monday. We have draft day coming up soon. We have we have trivia eventually coming out. We have Picture This, Frame Rec, a lot of great things. So stay tuned. A lot of fun things coming to the channel. Please subscribe if you want to see more. Like, comment, blow it up. Send it around to your friends and say, hey, this guy's hating on Marvel. He's such a Marvel hater, even though I said many times I was not. I know you're going to do it anyway. See you next time.